Hello Insiders, it's Mina Marzano here for another video, and today's going to be part 3 of our how to prepare for AEP starting now, so stay tuned for more. Alright, so we have already been through 2 videos on how to prepare for AEP. This last one, I want you guys to refresh your memory and be prepared when it comes to technology and when it comes to compliance. So first things first, make sure that you know all of the carrier technologies that you need to make your AEP successful. How are you going to do your online enrollments? Are you going to use Sunfire or Connecture or Medicare Center or whatever? Are you going to be using only those platforms? Do you know how to use other carrier platforms in case something were to happen to that platform? Are you set up with all your non-resident states? I mentioned that in the first video. Are you set up with all of the carriers that you need to represent in that platform? Make sure that those things are all squared away. If you are going to be doing remote sales, do you know how to record your calls online? Do you have the tool where you're going to record your calls online? If you don't, you're not going to magically know how to do it when AEP comes. So get prepared now. I recommend knowing how to use your hotspot on your phone. So in case you need to use your hotspot, maybe you go to a client's house and something's wrong with their internet or something of that nature, know how to connect your laptop or your iPad or whatever device you're using to your phone. You can also pull up a lot of these platforms, you can pull them up right on your phone as well. So make sure that you just know how to do those things ahead of time so that you're not scrambling in the middle of an appointment trying to figure it out, trying to call a million people, trying to troubleshoot. Make sure that you have your ducks in a row when it comes to that you know how you're doing your electronic scope of appointments, that you know how you're doing your enrollments, that you know how to do HRAs, and that you know which HRAs are where. There are a couple of carriers here and there that have HRAs that are not on platforms like Sunfire. There are HRAs that you have to do the enrollment on the carrier platform in order to be able to do that HRA. So make sure that you know what you're doing when it comes to all of that. Make sure that you are doing HRAs. Just kind of side note there, I talk to a lot of agents all the time. They're like, what's an HRA? I'm like, you are missing out on tons of money if you're not doing those health risk assessments, which different carriers have different names for. Humana calls it a member care assessment. Aetna calls it a value-based enrollment. So there's different names out there, but it's essentially a survey that you get paid for helping your client to complete. It's really easy. You should be doing those absolutely at the end of every enrollment that you do. Make sure you know where to complete them. I would also have outlined what carriers offer what options. So know if a carrier has like a telephonic scope, a telephonic enrollment. There are a lot of carriers that have these options available to you where you just got to pick up the phone on a 3-way with your client and do a voice scope of appointment, right? Sunfire has a voice scope of appointment, a voice signature on the enrollment. These are really useful tools if you know how to use them. Make sure that you know how to use them ahead of time. Webinar, video calls, anything that you are going to be doing, if you're going to be using Zoom, if you're going to be using WebEx, if you think that you're going to pay for a call recording application like Dialpad or Phone.com or Zoom, make sure that you know how to use it ahead of time. So I know I'm kind of being redundant here, but the reason that I'm being redundant is because I get calls in the middle of AEP, every AEP, with people who have not prepared themselves technologically and are having all kinds of issues just because they thought that AEP would come and magically they would know how to run a Zoom meeting, and they've never done it before. So do it now, do a couple test runs. I would think about, you know, what happens if the internet goes down? What happens if this is not available on this platform? That's why it's good. You know, we use things like Sunfire, Connecture that is all-in-one enrollment platforms, but it's always good to have a backup because you never know what could happen, what could go down, if a carrier is not available, if a carrier is not working, if their HRA is not working in Sunfire, can I go to the carrier platform and do that HRA? So just get your ducks in a row when it comes to technology. Where am I doing my enrollments? Where am I doing my HRAs? Where am I doing my scope of appointments? Am I going to be doing any kind of calls, either recorded on a platform like Dialpad or via Zoom or anything of that nature? Do I know how to maneuver through those processes? And moving away from the technology aspect, going into 2024, a big one here is to know and be up to date, be up to speed on all compliance changes. So there definitely have been a few. We've posted videos on pretty much all of these or on all of these. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch one of our videos. One of those things is a definition of marketing that CMS has changed that a little bit, so you can't mention any kind of benefits on pieces that you have to get filed with CMS. So that's relevant to those of you who are maybe putting out flyers, who are printing flyers or mailers or sending any kind of pieces or posting anything, maybe like on a magazine, any kind of advertisement, anything that needs to be approved by CMS, anything that's considered marketing. You cannot add any kind of benefit details to that piece. One of the biggest changes coming up is that 48-hour scope of appointment. So make sure that you plan ahead of time. How am I going to get the scope of appointment 48 hours in advance, and then schedule the meeting with my client 48 hours from then? You know, scope of appointments are good for 6 months now. They're moving up to being good for 12 months. So you don't need to get those scope of appointments exactly 48 hours. You can get that scope of appointment, you know, at the beginning of AEP and not have an appointment scheduled until the end of AEP. You just want to make sure that you have that scope of appointment within that time frame, and that you know the exceptions for that 48-hour rule. So incoming calls are an exception for that 48-hour rules. Walk-in appointments, so if you have an office space and a client comes in and they want to enroll, that's an exception. If it's the last 4 days of that enrollment period, that's an exception. So make sure that you know what constitutes an exception and that you heed by those guidelines, and that you have a procedure set in place for that 48-hour in advance scope of appointment. And the last thing is get familiarized with that disclaimer. You know, we've had the disclaimer already for a while. We've just changed a couple of things on it where now you have to say how many plans and how many products you offer in that county where you are talking to that client in, and you also have to include CHIP in your disclaimer. So make sure that you know what that disclaimer is. If you don't have it in front of you, reach out to your FMO or reference one of our previous videos that outlines exactly what the verbiage needs to be on those disclaimers, and you should be good to go. But make sure that you are up to date. If you're not up to date, especially on compliance, go back and just watch some of our videos. I have done videos on all of these things, the 48-hour rule, the disclaimers, the definition of marketing. Go back and watch these videos, just refresh your memory, get up to speed. It's not a big deal. If you have any questions, I always tell you guys, reach out, but actually reach out. Use us as a resource. We are here to help you with these things and navigating all of these changes. So if you need me to go over anything else in any more detail, if you want me to expand on anything else, if you have any suggestions for us, comment below, send me an email, give me a call. I'm here to help you guys. So that is the end of part 3, and that concludes our series of how to prepare for AEP Now. I hope that this has all been helpful. I know that if you take some of these little pieces of advice, you will be successful during AEP. Make sure you don't procrastinate. Start planning. Use your resources, reach out to your carrier reps, all of the things that we've talked about, and make sure that you are in a good place well before October comes. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. Let me know what you think. Go on Facebook and join our Facebook group, Medicare Insiders, and I will see you guys next video. Bye-bye.